What's up, everybody? Mark with Coffee and Toys here. It's Monday. That means we are doing another review of the classic G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero run from Marvel Comics that ran from 1982 to 1994. And wow, I am excited to get to this issue today. But first, before we get to that issue, welcome to the channel. My name is Mark. I'm with Coffee and Toys. I drink coffee. I talk about toys. Sometimes I'm reviewing toys, sometimes I'm reviewing classic vintage toys, and some days like today, I do comic book reviews, and today's review is again over the Marvel run of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, specifically issue 8. Before we get into all that though, let's talk some coffee. Today, I am once again sponsored by coffeebrandcoffee.com. That's right, go to coffeebrandcoffee.com, and today I am drinking their 2X caffeinated roast. It is a light roast, and I just needed to pick me up today, so I got 2X, the double caffeinated brew in my Coffee Brand coffee mug. You can pick all these great items up or other great items. They have more than just coffee. They have hot cocoa, they have candies, they have nuts. Please use the link below or use discount code Coffee&Toys. That's COFFEE NTOYS. Save yourself 5% on your first purchase or your 50th purchase, and you help out the channel a little bit while you're at it, so very much appreciated. But with that being said, today we will be reviewing issue number 8 of G.I. Joe, and let's just jump right into it. Okay, I've got my camera the way I like it. Let's jump into G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, published by Marvel Comics. Issue 8 came out in February of 1983, and it is entitled Codename Sea Strike. Artist and writer for this issue is Herb Trimpe. That's right, no Larry Hama on this issue. Letterer Rick Parker, colorist Christy Scheel, editor Denny O'Neil. That's right, a new editor on this one as well. And editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. Now, the issue starts off, we have a Cobra submersible approaching the Kennedy Space Center from a distance. This submersible also has an airplane on the back of it, and we see Cobra Commander at the helm looking at the Kennedy Space Center through binoculars right before it submerges once again underwater. Now we cut back to the G.I. Joe team, and they are training seemingly in the tundra for their next mission. Some of them are complaining about how the mission is going. Stalker says knock it off, and just then is hit in the head with a snowball by Clutch. Suddenly, Colonel Hawk appears and says, I'm going to dock you $100 on your next pay, Clutch, for that little antic. And suddenly he looks up and he says, kill the blowers. And we realize that they are not actually in the tundra. They are actually in a large staging area, a warehouse, and that it has been manufactured to represent the tundra. And it was just a training exercise. Also worth noting is that Colonel Hawk does show up beforehand, before he says that, not wearing a parka, unlike the rest of the G.I. Joe team, which is a nice little, should have tipped me off before I noticed it, but very good writing there, and drawing, I should say. He then, Hawk proceeds to tell him that their next mission is to go to the Kennedy Space Center, and that they are responsible for escorting the space shuttle to the launch site, and that Cobra might have been tipped off about this and know about it, and they need to protect the space shuttle launch from Cobra. During that time, Rock and Roll makes a funny joke saying, just like the Army, train us for cold weather and then send us to Florida. Again, I thought that was funny. We cut back to the Cobra submersible, and it is docking with this humongous underwater secret base. And we see Cobra Commander telling the leaders that this underwater base is a marvel, and that soon they will have those all over the globe, and that basically they can launch missiles from these underwater bases. That being said, their plan is to attack the Kennedy Space Center, and Baroness, meanwhile, is kind of laying into the troops, saying, G.I. Joe might know where we're at because of our own rank and file allowing information to slip out. Cobra Commander says, don't worry, we're too far underwater that they can't get our precise location, and we are going to continue on our plan. At this point, the G.I. Joe team is loaded up, and they are getting ready to go to the Kennedy Space Center, and Scarlet asks Colonel Hawk who's going to be involved in this mission. Colonel Hawk says everyone. This is the first issue that we have actually had a full 13 members, the full 13 members of the G.I. Joe team involved in a mission. So that's very exciting. We get to see all 13 Joes in action. As they're making their way to the Space Center. Hawk then goes over, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have 2 rings of protection around the Space Shuttle. The inner ring is going to consist of Zap, Short Fuse, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, and Hawk, while the outer ring will be the mobile defense team, and that's going to include Steeler, Grunt in a Mobat, Rock and Roll on his bike, Clutch, and Ranger. Again, they say Ranger, but they mean Stalker, so they keep using Ranger and Stalker's names. They keep switching them back and forth. Clutch and Stalker are going to be in a Vamp, and Grand Slam is going to be on the with the laser cannon. And Flash and Breaker kind of go, well, where are we going to be at in this? And he says, you two, Flash and Breaker, are going to report directly to the Space Shuttle, and they are actually going to go up in space with the rest of the Space Shuttle team. And Breaker does not seem very excited about that. Just then, Stalker radios Hawk and reports that Cobra is attacking at sea. Cobra shows up using their sea legs. That's a surprise, engage, and attack vehicle. And they are decimating the launch zone, but they're being pinned down by the outer ring. Offshore, Cobra Commander and the Baroness watch from the submersible and then board their helicopter, get a closer look at the action. The Joe and Cobra teams keep fighting, with both sides losing various vehicles. Cobra Commander and the Baroness approach, and Baroness notes that the sea legs are lost, and Cobra Commander's like, it's fine, they were expendable, I have more, I'm going to launch my amphibious assault vehicles now. And Stalker, who now has a jetpack, radios Hawk and tells them they are ready for the next round. The inner circle of Joes will be assisting shortly. We get to see Zap and Fuse hiding in some tall grass and unleashing devastating mortar attacks on the amphibious vehicles. Scarlet actually takes out one of the vehicles with a handbag full of grenades, and Snake Eyes takes out one using stealth and nothing but his hands. So it's very nice to see different Joes doing what they're good at, basically. Or not what they're good at, but kind of like attacking in different means and methods. Baroness tells the Cobra Commander that they have lost, and Cobra Commander says, not before I'm going to unload this payload from the helicopter that they're in. And he fires it directly at the Space Shuttle. As the missile approaches, we have Colonel Hawk standing in front of the Space Shuttle. And, of course, he takes one precise aim and blows up the missile right before it gets to the Space Shuttle. Baroness says to Cobra Commander, all is lost, we need to retreat. And Cobra Commander once again disagrees with her and says, hey, we have more cards to play, and I can take some satisfaction knowing that I just killed the leader of the G.I. Joe team, even though he didn't. He thought he did, but the explosion happened. It shows later it happened a little further away, and Hawk was able to escape. The helicopter then submerges itself with CC saying that they're not retreating, and they are going to go back on the attack. Meanwhile, the G.I. Joe team gets in their own Aqua Chopper, which is what they call it, the Aqua Chopper, and they're tracking Cobra Commander when he's underwater, and then suddenly the entire sea base emerges. The G.I. Joe team lands on top of the sea base, and they're now going to have this massive fight with Cobra troops on top of the sea base. Meanwhile, the space shuttle has taken off, and they are now in space. And while they're in space, Breaker and Grand Slam are up there, and the space station from Earth launches one of its missiles, and it's heading up and it's going towards the space shuttle. And they're like, well, how are we going to be able to stop this thing? Because the G.I. Joe team's fighting on the floor, or fighting on Earth, and we're up in space, and this missile's heading directly at us. So Breaker gets the great idea. Flash gets the great idea that he's actually going to steer the missile away. He's outside the spaceship, and he's going to steer the missile away. Apologize. So he's going to steer this missile away with just his body, because it's a vacuum of space, and you actually can redirect things, even large things, with very little power because of the vacuum of space, is what he gets at. So he grabs the missile, he manages to divert it from the space shuttle, and it just flies off, and I think it explodes. Just absolute insanity. Back on top of the Cobra base, the G.I. Joe team's pinned down by the Cobra legions. Hawk calls in Short Fuse to take the central tower out on this massive base, in which he does with ease, allowing the G.I. Joe team to take command of the situation. And finally, they manage to take over, stop the enemy forces, and Cobra Commander and the Baroness manage to get away in the submersible once again. But as they're trying to get away, Hawk tells Zap to take them out, and he actually opens fire on the submersible and gets it direct on, dead aim hit. Submersible starts sinking, and Cobra Commander and the Baroness once again manage to get away with that seaplane that was on the back of the submersible that you might have remembered from earlier in the story. The Cobra troops have refused to give up, and some of them even went to their deaths as the Cobra base blows up in the ocean. The G.I. Joe team manages to get away in some lifeboats that were attached to the base because the Aqua Chopper had been destroyed. Apologize. With that being said, the issue ends with the G.I. Joes all in these 2 lifeboats, noting that Cobra Commander always seems to get away, and that they can't wait for their next mission, where they'll probably get trained for the Sahara and then wind up being in the ocean, making, again, a little joke like they did earlier. Now, what do I think of this issue overall? This was a front-to-back, action-packed, lots of stuff going on in this particular issue. I enjoyed seeing all 13 Joes doing something. All 13 Joes were involved, and I wish I didn't have this tickle in my throat. Something tells me that since this issue came out in February of 1983, that the G.I. Joe toy line, if you do recall, they had went in 1983 and they had switched to the swivel arm action for the figures. And I can only guess that they tried to line up this issue and promote all the new G.I. Joe re-releases that came out this year with that swivel arm battle action by having all 13 G.I. Joes involved. Just basically telling kids, hey, all these characters you can go purchase them right now, and you'll get to play with their accessories and stuff like that and see what each one of them do. And that's probably why all 13 figures were introduced in this particular issue for the mission. At least that's my guess. You tell me in the comments below if you believe that or not. But yeah, a jam-packed, fun issue, front to back. Cobra Commander not failing not once, not twice, 3 different times, and he just kept going and going and going. And it was just crazy. Herb Trimp writing and doing the art for this issue I thought was very fun. It's a very fun one-off issue. Not a lot of character development outside the characters we already knew, but it was nice to see all the characters involved. So yeah, that's the review of this issue. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Make sure you like this video if you've made it this far. It really does help out the channel. Make sure you visit coffeebrandcoffee.com. Use that promo code Coffee&Toys. Also put the link down below. And comment. Let me know if you remember picking up this issue when you were young, or if you've read it in your adult years and what you thought of it. But with that being said, I'm Mark. You've been watching Coffee with Toys, and I'll see you later.